Yes.
Now may we have our next contestant, please? Will you come in? Will you tell the panel, please, what your name is and where you're from?
I'm Paul Eakins from Sikeston, Missouri.
Mr. Eakins, and he is from Missouri. Mr. Eakins, I noticed that you brought something with you tonight. Could you tell us what it is?
That's a roll of music.
Or more specifically, a music roll.
Right.
Now, if you brought it with you, there must be something special about it. Could you tell us what it is, sir, please?
That is my secret.
Ah, well, then you whisper it to me, and we'll show it to the folks at home. Here we go.
What is Paul Eakins' secret? We'll find out on this special edition of Southern Roots. So stay with us.
Funding for this program is made possible in part by the WKNO Partners in Excellence Fund, committed to presenting quality programming, and by viewers like you.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Corvellis. Thanks for tuning in. Well, you may not have heard of him, but Paul Eakins became quite well known in the 50s and 60s. What began as a hobby turned into something of an obsession that has spanned generations. Now, let's find out more about Paul Eakins and his secret.
All right. Now, panel, this too concerns something that he has, and we'll start the questioning with Henry, please.
Mr. Eakins, is this music roll very old?
I would say 30 years old.
Does it, I'm trying to think what happened 30 years ago in the music roll business. Is it the kind that went into a piano that you pumped with your feet?
No, sir.
Did it go into an electric piano?
Yes, sir.
An Ampico?
No, sir.
Was it?
$20 down, $60 to go. We go, please, to Bess.
Mr. Eakins, would we recognize this music if you should play it tonight?
I believe you might.
Yes, you will play it tonight?
Yes?
Yes. Does your secret concern the name of the song that we'll hear?
It does not.
No.
All right, $40 gone. Bill Cullen, you're on.
Is this the kind of roll you put in a piano, and the piano then plays with the holes punched in the roll?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
But that's only partially it, Bill. That's only part of the...
Oh, yeah. Is this a first, or is this an only thing of its kind, Mr.
No,
Eakins?
sir.
Is this a first?
No, sir.
Last?
That I don't know.
Oh, it couldn't be the last piano roll ever. No, because they still make them.
$60 gone. Betsy there?
No, I won't tie that. This roll is inside of that which is there, isn't it?
This is a roll.
That's the lead part.
I see,
yes.
the paper. Well, now that's about the fattest one I've ever seen. That doesn't play in the normal kind of piano.
This is a healthy one.
Yes. Does this, say, for instance, play more in an organ or some other instrument beside a piano?
Yes.
It does. Does this...
Oh, Betsy, you were so close. Mr. Eakins not only has an unusual secret, he also has a remarkable hobby. He has the world's largest collection of coin-operated musical instruments. And this music roll comes from his collection in Sikeston, where he has a tourist attraction called the Gay 90s Village. And wait till you hear what this music roll can do. Mr. Eakins, if you'll join me center stage, we can show just 2 of his 65 instruments to the audience.
In his day, Paul Eakins amassed an astounding collection of musical machines. He and his wife Laura even opened a museum in Sikeston, Missouri to house the collection. Producer Debbie Robertson and well-known organist Vincent Astor traveled to Sikeston to meet Paul Eakins' grandson, Chris Carlisle, who, due to an unusual twist of fate, is carrying on the family tradition.
In town here, he had a successful heating and cooling business. You know, he's a contractor, and he'd worked so much, you know, to take care of his family, but he developed an ulcer, and his doctor told him that he had to quit that, or, you know, it'd basically kill him.
So Paul Eakins packed up the family for a much-needed vacation and headed west. It was during that vacation in Lincoln, New Mexico, at the La Paloma Bar, that he stumbled upon an idea.
There was a little bar that had been there, I guess, for 100 years, right across the street from the courthouse where Billy the Kid jumped out the window, before Pat Garrett killed him. So I took the family. We were, kind of trying to enjoy ourselves. And the little bar was kind of a museum. We walked in and there sat a Nickelodeon, and I'd forgotten them, for like 20, 25 years. I put a nickel in the thing that didn't work, and I thought, gee, if I could find one, maybe I could get it to play. Well, we found one and got it to playing.
He went all around the country getting, the old rundown machines. Like first, it started off with Nickelodeons and music boxes and player pianos and that sort of thing.
Paul Eakins was a tremendous showman. In fact, if he hadn't been born where he was, he probably would have been a carny. When Paul Eakins started making these broken machines work, he found there were a lot of them. And at the time, in the late 50s, mid to late 50s, nobody wanted them anymore. They were all putting in jukeboxes and phonographs. So he amassed this huge collection of machines, and he opened a museum in Sikeston, Missouri, called the Gay 90s Village, in about 1955. It put Sikeston, Missouri on the map, and he turned this nondescript set of buildings in Sikeston, Missouri into an old west town with a Long Branch saloon and a museum and the War Drum restaurant and all these sorts of theme names. And inside was this big museum filled with all of his musical machines.
Orchestrion, Nickelodeon, hurdy-gurdy, all words from a bygone era, and all part of the Eakins collection. But the true showstoppers were the brightly colored, elaborately carved confections called band organs. Band organ music has been called the happiest music on earth, and you've heard it if you've ever strolled the Midway at the fair or ridden the Carousel. In the late 60s, at the Mid-South Fair, one of these instruments, named Madame Laura, caught the eye and ear of a budding young organist named Vincent Astor.
It was 1969. I was 16. I was in love with a big wooden organ. I've been going to the Mid-South Fair all my life. I'd seen the Gay 90s Village tent, and one day I met Paul and Laura Eakins when I went inside to listen to the organs play. And I couldn't get enough. I spent all day there. And I went to the Melody Museum in St. Louis the next summer to see more of the machines. And I bought this record that had this big red organ on it. And I liked it so much, I played it over and over and over again. And next year, 1969, she was at the fair. And I got to see Madame Laura for the first time. I have loved organ music all of my life. Oddly enough, the year I saw Madame Laura at the Mid-South Fair for the first time is the year I played the organ at the Malco, now the Orpheum Theater, for the first time. And a lot of the arrangements I heard from those mechanical machines were tunes that I later played for hundreds of people at the Orpheum Theater.
Madame Laura, as she appeared at the Mid-South Fair in 1969, bore little resemblance to the way she looked when Paul Eakins rescued her. The once beautiful instrument had suffered the ravages of time and the elements and needed major repairs. But the mechanical parts, pipes, and the 3 beautiful wooden figures were intact. It took over 3 years to finish the restoration, but with the help of sign painters Ted Martin and Gene Crump, Paul Eakins slowly brought the organ back to life.
Most band organs are cream-colored with a lot of pretty carving on it. Paul Eakins loved colorful things, and he described this one as a beautiful gilded valentine. And that's what it is. It was all of the organs that he had were painted bright, beautiful colors, and you could see them from all over the place. And this one's one of the most striking.
Paul loved gold. He wanted the machines and things that we'd do, he wanted as much gold, put gold on it, but he loved gold. And he loved red. Red was one of his favorite colors. And he tore them down from scratch. Some of them, when he got them in, there was just a pile of junk. People had already just give up on them, and he'd take them, and if there was a piece missing, he'd make the new piece and put it in and rebuild it, and it would look brand new when he got done with it. But whatever he did, he spent time on it. And as I said, there'd be some of the units, the back part back there, he would not even have it. It wasn't even there when he got it. It'd just be a pile of wood. And he would take that thing, if he got to a place where there wasn't a piece, he would make the piece, replace it, and get it to working. And there was some beautiful music come out of that. I'm sure you can listen to the recordings and see.
And somewhere along the line, somebody noticed that the conductor bore a resemblance to his wife, Laura. And there's a picture of Laura Eakins that looks an awful lot like the central figure on this organ. And I'm also told that she had a rather commanding presence when she wanted to.
She would be commanding, I'll guarantee you. Laura would be in charge.
The only thing that could make it better if it was smoking a cigar. That'd make it perfect. But my grandma was a unique character too, and I think it was a way of paying tribute to her.
In 1974, Madame Laura and other parts of the Eakins collection were sold to Bellum's Cars and Music of Yesterday in Sarasota, Florida.
I had no idea what had become of the collection. I didn't even know that Bellum's had closed. And I saw an ad online. 87 key Gavioli organ, Madame Laura for sale, with all this list of things that was the matter with her. And I didn't really sure. I was hoping I'd win the lottery, and that would have been the first thing I would have done. Would have been bought that organ and sent it to the shop and brought it back to life.
That's where Paul and Laura Eakins' grandson, Chris Carlisle, picks up the story.
When I first saw the ad for Madame Laura to be sold, it was like I jumped out of my seat. And I thought to myself, I'd like to get that. Basically, it was a rescue because when I went to look at the organ in North Carolina, we could walk in. Well, I walked in and he showed me this piece of wood, and it was about an inch thick. I just poked my finger through it. It was just eaten away with woodworm damage, and it was just pitiful, I thought how my grandpa worked so hard for these machines to be in perfect condition, and then people just let them just turn into kindling, really. It's got a nice history to it. It was built in the 1890s in Paris, France, by a firm called Gavioli. It was brought to the United States in the early 1900s, and we have a copy of the original catalog that this organ was advertised in. It played on a carousel from, I believe, 1910 till 1955, something like that, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, at an amusement park up there. And my grandfather went down and looked at these organs and bought them and brought them back to Sikeston, and he redid them all.
A lot of these organs were built to play marches and waltzes and things that would go well with carousels and midways, but they also played the popular music of the day. When this organ was built, it was playing Alexander's Ragtime Band and Let Me Call You Sweetheart. Well, the Eakins carried on the tradition, and when I first heard this organ, it was playing Somewhere My Love and Winchester Cathedral that were written right around that time in the 60s. It was wonderful because they sounded just as good on this as they did a lot of other places. You know, they were even country music fans. Can you imagine this organ playing Your Cheatin' Heart, and it sounded good? A lot of band organs are brassy and sassy. They're all just plain loud. Paul Eakins had another organ that he called Sadie Mae that was almost 50% trumpets. And it would blast you across the fairgrounds without the slightest provocation. Well, Laura used to say, Sadie Mae is a floozy. Madame Laura is a lady. And that's the difference. If I had my choice of any kind of a keyboard to own in the entire world, I'd own a calliope. It's my favorite kind of a musical instrument, and I can play one too. That's what Madame Laura is a multi-voiced, hooty, fluty, calliope sounding organ, and maybe that's why I love it so much. Madame Laura is a mechanical organ. She requires no electricity to work at all. A big wheel in the back turns either by hand or by electricity, by a separate motor, and works the bellows in the bottom of the machine. This provides the air to blow through the pipes to make them play, but also the air to work the mechanics of the organ. The wheel turned the bellows, which moved levers that opened an opening under the pipes so the air could come out and the organ would play. The wheel turned, pumped the bellows, and provided all this air to power the organ. If you were really strong enough and had a lot of stamina, you could eliminate the motor altogether, and Madame Laura would play just the same. The Gavioli company that constructed Madame Laura decided to update the way that organs played. So instead of the big round roll, which could only play a very few tunes, they devised and patented a way to, instead of using pins to move the levers, to use that same air pressure to read the holes in a folded book of music. When the book music passes through the key frame, you can see little keys pop up through the holes. That works a lever that pushes air into a puffboard, which moves the levers which play the organ.
There's people that make the music now, new music books. Arthur Princeton, who made these books for my grandfather way back in the early 60s. He just retired this last year, but he made me his last 3 books he made for me because Paul was my grandfather and he wanted to do it for me. And there's people that make them in Europe and in the States here, but it's really a big job to make them because they're made by hand, they're pressed paper. You know, you can't make them with them, you know, you can't mass produce them. They have to be made by hand, but they're still available. But if you take care of them, they'll last forever, pretty much. What I want to happen is I'm going to buy a trailer and we're going to take it around to rallies or hire it out and take it to people and just play for them. you know, for special events, birthday parties, openings of a store, department store, or just any kind of event. That's what my grandfather did when they paid him to go down to Memphis at the Mid-South Fair. You know, like Coca-Cola would sponsor them. They'd pay all the way, and it was a big deal. You know, as Vincent knows, that, you know, it had a big following down there. People would go to the fair just to hear the organs, you know. And hopefully we can get back to doing that. It's going to be a couple more years, but we're going to get a trailer and just take it around and let people listen to it.
What I'd like to see happen is I'd like to see her never put in storage again. I'd like to see her where people can listen to her like I did, and maybe some person will come along to carry on this love that a lot of us have. I've been fond of this organ since I was 16 years old, and I don't know, it's just, they're beautiful things. They play happy music, and I figure we can use all the optimism we can get, and that's exactly what these organs were built to do, to make people happy.
I hope that I can continue the tradition of bringing these organs back to life and keeping their history going and letting people enjoy listening to them and come looking at them. It's something that my grandparents did, and they enjoyed doing it, and hopefully I can do it with the help of my wife and daughter and their support, and keep up the good work, I guess.
One of the most interesting things about this particular organ is it's come full circle. When I first heard about it, this guy named Paul Eakins had rescued this band organ out of a shed in Alabama, brought her back to life, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people saw it and enjoyed the music. And then it went away, as things do, and it moved to Florida and then moved back. And it did not escape me that it was Paul's grandson that was rescuing the organ a second time. And I was fortunate enough to be there. I think it's a wonderful thing to see her back here in Sikeston, where she spent so much time. And it's like going back a little bit, which is something that you can't do very often. And you go back maybe and it's even better than it was the first time.
That's it for this edition of Southern Roots. Till next time, thanks for tuning in.